Part 1. Abandonment in the Wyoming Territory. Wyoming Territory, 1867. The frontier was a land of raw ambition, where only the young and strong were deemed worthy of its promises. For Eleanor Harper, a woman of 48, her crime was not the sturdy cabin she had helped raise with calloused hands. It was the silver threading her dark hair, the lines etched by years of toil across her weathered face. In a world that worshipped youth, her family saw her as a relic, a burden too heavy for the lean winters ahead. On a bitter February night, they cast her out into the howling blizzard, expecting the Wyoming wilderness to claim her. They called her too old, useless, a drain on their scarce resources. But the Lakota people who found her, half buried in snow, saw something else. A woman of unshakable resolve, her spirit as enduring as the ancient pines. Among them was a warrior named Swift Bear, whose own scars of loss would weave a story with hers that neither could have foreseen. This is the true tale of two souls from clashing worlds, bound by fate, where love triumphed over hatred's cruel design. The old mantel clock in the Harper cabin told 3, its mournful chime swallowed by the wind's relentless assault. Eleanor pulled her threadbare shawl tighter, her fingers stiff from the cold, despite the fire flickering weakly in the hearth. Shadows danced across the rough-hewn floor, casting ghostly shapes over the faces of her kin, faces that once held warmth but now gleamed with disdain. "You can't expect us to carry her through another winter," her nephew James Whittaker declared, his voice slicing through the air as if Eleanor were already a specter. At 35, James had his father's broad frame but none of his kindness. "Look at her. She can't even keep the fire going, let alone help with the spring planting." Eleanor's eyes remained fixed on the flames, her spine rigid with pride, the only shield she had left. "James, please," whispered his wife Abigail, her voice trembling but lacking conviction. Her gaze stayed on the floor, fingers twisting the hem of her skirt. "No, my mind's made up," James snapped. "My father might have felt duty-bound to keep his spinster sister, but that duty died with him. We can't feed our own children, and another mouth that gives nothing back." Eleanor lifted her gaze, her gray eyes steady as steel. "I've never asked for handouts, James. This land was my father's." He cut her off, his voice cold as the Wyoming frost. "And now it's mine. Every acre, every plank, every nail in these walls belongs to me." The truth was a jagged blade between them. Her brother, Thomas Harper, had promised her a home for life when she joined him in the West after their parents' deaths in Philadelphia. But Thomas had been in the ground 3 months now, and promises, it seemed, crumbled with their makers. Outside, the storm roared, rattling the cabin's windows like the wails of restless spirits. Wyoming winters were merciless, a fact Eleanor knew intimately after 15 years on the frontier. She had endured droughts, blizzards, and raids from desperate outlaws. She had delivered all 5 of James's children, nursed Thomas through his final fever while James bartered in Cheyenne. None of it mattered now. "I've packed your things," James said, gesturing to a pitiful bundle by the door. "Food for 3 days, your mother's Bible, father's old hunting knife." Eleanor's heart stuttered. "You're sending me out now in this storm. The stage to Fort Laramie passes tomorrow, 10 miles down the post road," James replied. "You can shelter in the old Miller barn tonight. 10 miles in this weather would kill a man half my age," Eleanor said, her voice calm despite the fear clawing her chest. Abigail made a small, choked sound, but James's glare silenced her. "That's not my concern," he said. "You leave today." Eleanor's gaze swept the cabin she'd helped build, the rocking chair hauled from Philadelphia, the quilt she'd stitched for the children during endless winter nights. 15 years of her life, now discarded like refuse. In the corner, 8-year-old Emily, James's youngest, watched with tear-streaked cheeks. The girl darted forward, wrapping thin arms around Alina. "Aunt Ellie can't go. She makes the best medicines. She saved me from the fever," James pried Emily away. "Your mother can learn remedies. Go to your room. The children need me," Alina said softly, her hand lingering on Emily's shoulder. "We'll manage," James said, his tone final. "Maybe the new settlement in Laramie will take you, or the mission at Red Cloud Agency. Though I doubt either wants an old spinster." Alina rose, gathering her dignity like a cloak. She had sensed this day looming. Thomas had warned her in his final hours, his voice faint but urgent. "James has changed. The land's hardened him. He sees only profit, not people." How right her brother had been. "I'll need my sewing kit," she said. "And my herbs. If I'm to survive, I'll need those." James hesitated, then nodded. "Take what you can carry. Nothing more." Within the hour, Alina stood on the porch, a canvas pack slung over her shoulder, Thomas's worn walking stick in hand. The wind sliced through her wool coat, stealing her breath. Snow already blanketed the prairie, obscuring the distant Bighorn Mountains in a swirling gray veil. Abigail pressed a small pouch of dried apples into her hand, avoiding her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Alina looked past her to the cabin window, where small faces peered out, her nieces and nephews watching as their father banished their aunt into the wild. She raised a hand in farewell, then turned toward the road. Pride kept her posture straight until she was out of sight. Only then did her shoulders sag, tears freezing on her cheeks. 10 miles to the post road through knee-deep snow, with night closing in. Alina knew James's game, a pretense of mercy masking a death sentence. No one survived a Wyoming winter alone. Part 2, a spark in the snow. The first hour was fueled by anger, her steps defiant against the wind's fury. By the second, numbness crept into her toes and fingers. By the third, the sun dipped low, painting the snow in hues of rose and gold, beautiful, if not for the death it heralded. Alina knew she wouldn't reach the Miller barn. Familiar landmarks had vanished under the snow, and darkness made navigation impossible. She needed shelter now. In the fading light, she spotted a cluster of cottonwoods along what she hoped was Lodgepole Creek. Trees meant some shield from the wind, perhaps fallen branches for a windbreak. It was a slim hope, but all she had. The descent to the creek was perilous. She fell twice, the second time tumbling down the embankment, losing her walking stick and bruising her hip. Pain brought fresh tears, but Alina forced herself onward. To stop was to die. Among the trees, the wind's howl softened. She clawed through the snow to the creek bank, finding a small overhang where the water had carved a hollow beneath tangled cottonwood roots. Not a cave, but enough to shield her from the storm's worst. With trembling hands, she unpacked her meager supplies, Thomas's flint and steel, a tin of tinder, the hunting knife. She gathered dry twigs buried under the snow, arranging them in the hollow's deepest recess. "Please," she whispered, to God, to the spirits, to anyone listening. Her numb fingers struck the flint a dozen times before a spark caught. She coaxed the flame with her breath, feeding it tiny twigs until a small fire flickered to life. Alina huddled close, knowing the fire wouldn't last the night, knowing morning offered no salvation. The stage to Fort Laramie might as well be 1,000 miles away. Her thoughts drifted to her life. She had never married, choosing to care for her aging parents in Philadelphia until their deaths. By then, she was past the age society deemed marriageable. Thomas's invitation to the West had been a lifeline, a chance to be useful again. She had become a midwife for 3 settlements, learned the healing properties of sage and yarrow, taught children their letters when no school existed. At 48, she was discarded, her contributions erased by the sin of growing old. The fire sputtered as her wood dwindled. Eleanor forced herself to search for more, but her body moved sluggishly, cold seeping into her bones. A dangerous drowsiness tugged at her. "Not yet," she murmured. "Not like this." The wind shifted, driving snow into her shelter, nearly extinguishing the fire. She shielded the flames with her body, and then she heard it, hoofbeats, steady and real, cutting through the storm's chaos. At first she thought it was delirium, but the sound grew louder. Eleanor staggered to her feet, stumbling to the hollow's edge. "Here," she called, her voice frail against the wind. "I'm here." For a moment she feared they'd pass by. Then shapes emerged from the snow, 6 horses, riders swathed in furs. The lead rider dismounted, approaching with measured steps. In the fire's faint glow, Eleanor saw high cheekbones, dark eyes, and long black hair adorned with beads. Lakota. Her breath caught. The tribes near Cheyenne maintained a fragile peace with settlers, but tales of violence lingered. She had treated Lakota patients before, always under Thomas's roof. Alone here, she was defenseless. The warrior studied her, his face unreadable. He spoke in a language she didn't know, his breath clouding in the frigid air. When she didn't respond, he tried again, his English halting. "Why woman alone? Storm kills." Eleanor swallowed, her mouth dry. "My family. They sent me away. I have nowhere to go." The warrior frowned, struggling to understand. He turned, speaking rapidly to his companions. Their voices rose and fell like the wind. Eleanor sank against the embankment, her strength fading. The cold was a weight she could no longer bear, and sleep whispered promises of warmth. She was dimly aware of being lifted, wrapped in soft furs, the sensation of movement. The last thing she saw was the warrior's face above her, his eyes holding a concern she hadn't known in years. Then darkness claimed her and she surrendered, certain she would never wake. Part 3. Rebirth among the Lakota. Consciousness returned in fragments. A fire's crackle, the scent of stew simmering, soft voices in an unfamiliar tongue, the weight of fur blankets. Eleanor's eyes fluttered open, her vision clearing to reveal a teepee, its hide walls rising to a smoke hole where snowflakes melted before reaching the fire below. "She wakes," a woman's voice said, accented but clear. Eleanor turned her head, wincing at a sharp pain in her temples. An older Lakota woman knelt beside her, her gray braids framing a face carved with wisdom. She held a wooden cup. "Drink," she commanded. "Medicine strengthens." The liquid was bitter, laced with mint and earth. Eleanor obeyed, too weak to resist. "Where am I?" she asked. "Winter camp of Hunkpapa Lakota near Platte River," the woman replied, adjusting Eleanor's blankets. "You were 2 sons here. Fever came, fever went. You live," she spoke as if survival were certain. "The warrior who found me?" Eleanor asked. The woman nodded. "Swift Bear, my son. He brought you here." Eleanor closed her eyes, overwhelmed. Strangers had saved her, while her own blood condemned her. The irony was bitter. "Rest now," the woman said, rising with grace despite her age. "Tomorrow you speak with him." In the firelight, Eleanor saw the woman's deep-lined face, her silver-streaked hair. She was older than Eleanor, yet moved with purpose. No one had cast her out for her age. Sleep came, healing and warm, and for the first time since James's betrayal, Eleanor dared to hope her story wasn't over. Days passed in a haze as Eleanor's body recovered. The old woman, Grandmother Willow, tended her with teas, broths, and salves for frostbite. On the fourth day, Alina sat up, her strength returning. The teepee was empty save for Grandmother Willow, grinding herbs across the fire. "You have healer's hands," she said without looking up. "I saw you work medicines in your sleep." Alina glanced at her weathered hands. "I was a midwife in Philadelphia. Out here with no doctors, I learned from books, neighbors, and trial." Grandmother Willow nodded. "Plants speak to some. Few listen." Alina nodded, recalling moments when instinct guided her to the right herb. "Your son," she said. "I need to thank him." "He comes soon," Grandmother Willow replied. "He has questions. Why woman alone in snow? Why no family?" The reminder of James's cruelty stung, but Alina didn't have to wait long to explain. The teepee flap opened, admitting Swift Bear. In daylight, his scars, a line across his cheek, another along his jaw, spoke of battles survived. Nearing 50, he carried himself with quiet authority. "You heal," he said, his voice deep. "Thanks to your mother's care," Alina replied. "And to you for finding me." Swift Bear sat by the fire, his movements deliberate. "Why alone?" "Storm is death," Alina steeled herself. "My brother died 3 moons ago. His son, my nephew, took his land. Said I was too old, useless. He sent me to die." Swift Bear's face darkened as he translated for his mother. Grandmother Willow unleashed a torrent of Lakota, clearly outraged. "This not done," Swift Bear said. "Elders hold wisdom stories life. It's different for settlers," Alina said. "If you can't work or bear children, you're nothing," Swift Bear frowned. "Your medicine has no value. To some, yes. Not to James." He was silent, then asked, "This nephew has children?" "5, Alina said. "Who teaches them?" "Holds their stories." "I did," she whispered. "Until I didn't." Swift Bear exchanged a look with his mother. "Rest. Grow strong. Council meets soon." "Decides." He left, leaving Alina with questions. Grandmother Willow smiled. "My son, big heart under warrior face. Eat. Stories come with strength." Part 4, A Place Among the People. As Alina healed, she learned about her saviors. Grandmother Willow shared tales of their camp, their sacred dances, their history of resisting encroachment. Swift Bear was a respected warrior and council member, advocating peace when tensions flared with settlers. Grandmother Willow was the camp's revered healer, her knowledge sought even by desperate whites. From subtle hints, Alina pieced together Swift Bear's past. No wife, no children, a solitude born of loss. On her 7th day, he returned as she ground herbs under Grandmother Willow's guidance. "Walk with me," he said. Outside, the camp bustled, teepees in a great circle, children laughing, women tanning hides, men sharpening spears. Life thrived despite winter's grip. Swift Bear led her to a snow-dusted log at the camp's edge. "Council spoke of you," he said. "Some say send you to Fort Laramie when snow melts. Some say you bring trouble, soldiers follow lost women. I say you stay, learn, teach." Alina's breath caught. "Stay. But I'm white." "Healer, teacher," he countered. "Woman with no place." His words struck deep. She was indeed rootless, unwanted in settler towns where an aging spinster was a burden. "Why keep me?" she asked. "I'm old." Swift Bear's lips twitched. "My mother is older, still needed. Children need white ways, words, numbers to survive the enemy." The word enemy hung heavy, a reminder of the divide between their worlds. "And if I leave?" she asked, though the thought held no appeal. "You go when paths clear," he said. "No prisoner." Alina looked at the camp, its vibrant life. What awaited her elsewhere? Towns that shunned the old, where a woman alone was prey. "I'll stay," she said. Until spring. I'll teach, help your mother heal. Swift Bear nodded. Good. Now my story so you understand. He sat beside her, gazing at the horizon. 15 winters ago, I had a wife, beautiful, strong, carrying our child. Soldiers attacked her family's village on the Powder River while I hunted. All gone, wife, child, her kin. His voice held steady, but pain lingered in his eyes. I'm so sorry, Alina whispered. Many wanted war, he continued. I hated all whites, dreamed of vengeance. But an elder said, one hand cannot cover the sun. War meant death for all Lakota. So I learned your tongue, your ways, became a voice between worlds. Alina understood why he fought for her to stay. He had moved beyond hate, seeing not all whites as foes. And you? How do you see me? She asked. Swift Bear paused. A woman strong as Riverstone, unbroken by water. A healer my people need. Someone like me between worlds, belonging nowhere. His insight shook her. She had never fully belonged, not in Philadelphia's rigid society, not on the frontier where age became her curse. Thank you, she said, for trusting me with your story. As they returned, Alina saw the camp anew, not a refuge, but a home where age was revered. That evening, sorting herbs with Grandmother Willow, she thought of James. By now he'd assume her dead, with no search, no grief, perhaps a hollow prayer at church. Your thoughts wander, Grandmother Willow said. My family, Alina admitted. They think me gone. Those who abandon kin in winter have no right to mourn, Grandmother Willow said. But the children, Alina said. They didn't understand. Children learn what parents teach, Grandmother Willow replied. Your nephew teaches old ones are worthless. Bad medicine poisons generations. Alina couldn't argue. James had taught his children that family was disposable. In our way, Grandmother Willow continued, elders are treasures, stories, knowledge, wisdom of many winters. When young forget, the tribe weakens. It wasn't always so with my people, Alina said. Once grandparents raised children, shared skills. But the frontier's hard. Scarcity changes hearts. Scarcity is excuse, Grandmother Willow said. Heart either values life or not. My son values life, she added abruptly. Even after loss, he chose light over hate. He told me of his wife's death. Grandmother Willow nodded, her eyes distant. Many moons, he walked in shadow, reckless, seeking death. But a good heart blooms again, like a seed in winter. She studied Alina. He sees something in you, something that calls his spirit. Alina flushed. You're mistaken. He pities me, sees someone broken as he was. Grandmother Willow's smile was sly. I have many winters. My eyes see true. Alina focused on the herbs, ignoring the unfamiliar flutter in her chest. Swift Bear was her protector, nothing more. The idea was absurd. She was 48, gray-haired, a white woman in a Lakota camp. Part 5, A Teacher's Purpose. The next morning, Alina began teaching. A small teepee became her schoolhouse, with buffalo robes for seats and a bark slab for riding. Swift Bear brought 10 children, ages 6 to 14, introducing her as Teacher Alina. Some know English, he said. Others only Lakota. Children bridge worlds. The children's faces ranged from curious to wary. They'd grown up hearing tales of white treachery. Thank you for coming, Alina said, masking her nerves. I'll teach English, numbers, anything you wish. A 12-year-old girl with neat braids raised her hand. Why teach us? Whites hate Indians. The question demanded honesty. Some whites hate what they don't know, Alina said. Some fear. Some believe lies. But not all. I don't hate you. Your people saved me when my own cast me out. Why'd they do that? a 7-year-old boy asked. They thought me too old to be useful, Alina said. In your culture, elders are wise. In mine, some value only work. That's stupid, a 14-year-old boy declared. Alina laughed. Yes, it is. The tension broke, giggles rippling through the group. Swift Bear watched from the entrance, their eyes meeting briefly, a shared purpose passing between them. Then he was gone, leaving Alina to begin with names, each child sharing theirs in Lakota and English. Weeks passed swiftly. February gave way to March, with longer days and birds heralding spring. Alina's mornings were for teaching, her students' wariness turning to eagerness. They asked about eastern cities, ocean ships, steam-powered reapers. Afternoons, she worked with Grandmother Willow, trading healing knowledge. Evenings brought communal meals, stories, and Alina's growing grasp of Lakota phrases. Swift Bear was a steady presence, checking on her lessons, sometimes listening intently from the schoolhouse's back. He brought teaching tools, counting sticks, a slate, even 3 tattered books from an abandoned homestead. Their talks deepened, spanning Lakota ceremonies, settler dreams, and the tensions of westward expansion. An unspoken current grew between them, which Alina dismissed as gratitude. He was her guardian, responsible for her presence. Nothing more. Until the war party returned. Part 6, Justice at Lodgepole Creek. After a month in camp, Alina sensed a shift when 18 warriors, Swift Bear among them, rode out before dawn, armed with rifles and traditional weapons. Their purpose was unspoken, but the camp's tension was palpable. 3 days later, shouts announced their return. Alina joined the crowd as the warriors rode in, weary but proud, their travois laden with crates and barrels. 4 horses carried wounded men in makeshift stretchers. Swift Bear led them, blood staining his sleeve, his face grim. His eyes found Alina, a flicker of relief passing before he directed the wounded to the healing lodge. Alina followed, her healer's instincts overriding questions. The lodge buzzed with activity, Grandmother Willow bandaging a chest wound, others stitching a thigh gash. Alina knelt by a warrior with a broken arm, earning a wary glance. "I can help," she said. Grandmother Willow's voice cut through. "She's a healer. Let her work." The break was clean. Alina set it with splints and hide strips, using a numbing paste. "No use for one moon," she instructed. "Elevate it. Change bandages every 2 days." The warrior studied her work, then said, "Wapilla, thank you." For 2 hours, Alina worked alongside the Lakota women, treating wounds and a bullet graze. Exhausted, she stepped outside, her apron bloodied. "They raided the trading post at Lodgepole Creek," Swift Bear said, startling her. "Why?" she asked. His jaw tightened. 3 days ago, 2 of our men went to trade furs. Agent Dawson beat one near death, accused him of theft, locked the other in a cellar. Alina's heart sank. Dawson's cruelty was infamous, cheating tribes with impunity. "We freed our brother, took back what he stole from us," Swift Bear said. "No one died, but," he gestured to the lodge. "Your arm," Alina said, noting the blood. "Let me see." He extended it, revealing a shallow cut. "This needs cleaning," she said. "Come to your teepee, others need the lodge." His teepee was spacious, organized, a warrior's home. Alina worked by firelight, cleaning the wound, applying salve. "Not afraid?" he asked. "Of warriors who fight." "I'm a healer," she said. "I see wounds, not battles. And no, I'm not afraid of you." "Should I be?" He almost smiled. "Some whites see monsters in red skin. Some Indians see monsters in whites," she countered. "Both are wrong. Sharp mind," he said. "Common among the old," she smiled dryly. "So I'm told." Alina finished bandaging, lingering despite herself. "Thank you," he said, "for helping my men." "It's why I'm here," she replied. "To repay your kindness." "No debt," he said, his gaze intense. "No payment." Their eyes locked, and Alina felt something shift, something beyond gratitude. "I should go," she said softly. As she rose, he caught her hand, his touch brief but warm. "Sleep well, Alina Harper." "And you, Swift Bear," she replied, her heart unsteady. Part 7. A Bridge Between Worlds. The raid brought vigilance to the camp. Scouts patrolled farther, children stayed close, hunting parties grew. Some women watched Alina, with renewed awareness of her whiteness. Only with Grandmother Willow did things remain constant. "Men dance war dances, make big talk," she said, sorting raided medicinal stores. "Time passes, old troubles fade." "There'll be soldiers," Alina said. Grandmother Willow nodded. "They come, we move." Circle continues. The cycle, aggression, retreat, fragile peace, saddened Alina. "What if it could change?" she asked. Grandmother Willow paused. "Star Nation has many stars, each separate, yet together they light the dark. Peoples can live apart but in harmony." "How?" Alina pressed. "When hate runs deep. One heart changes, then another," Grandmother Willow said, tapping Alina's chest. "Yours has. My son's too." A scout's urgent return interrupted them. Soldiers were coming, 6 men, one officer from Fort Laramie bearing a white flag. Swift Bear approached grim. "Council meets now." "You come," Alina blinked. "Me, you know white soldiers," he said. "Need your wisdom." The council teepee held 12 leaders, their gazes heavy. Alina sat beside Swift Bear, feeling their scrutiny. The eldest spoke, Swift Bear translating. "Soldiers bring paper with talking marks. They ask for the raid's leader." The narrative continues with Alina's role in negotiations, the Fort Laramie confrontation, and her eventual marriage to Swift Bear. But due to length constraints, I'll pause here and confirm if you'd like me to proceed with the remaining sections Fort Laramie, marriage, legacy, in a subsequent response. Part 8. The Fort Laramie Reckoning. The council teepee was thick with tension, the air heavy with the weight of decisions that could tip the fragile balance between peace and war. 12 Lakota leaders sat in a semicircle, their faces etched with resolve, their eyes assessing Alina Harper as she took her place beside Swift Bear. She felt the scrutiny, some curious, some wary, a few tinged with suspicion. These men had welcomed her into their camp, but trust was a hard-won currency when her skin marked her as kin to their oppressors. The eldest council member, Gray Owl, spoke first, his voice steady, translated in low tones by Swift Bear. "The scout says soldiers come with paper of talking marks. They seek the one who led the raid on Lodgepole Creek." Alina's stomach tightened. The raid, born of necessity to free their kin and reclaim stolen goods, was now a spark that could ignite retribution. Swift Bear's expression remained impassive, but his hand rested lightly on the buffalo robe beside her, a silent reassurance. "What do they want?" another elder asked. "Justice for their trading post or blood for their pride?" The question hung unanswered until Swift Bear spoke, his voice calm but firm. "White flag means talk, not war. But soldiers' words twist like snakes. Alina knows their ways." All eyes turned to her. Alina drew a breath, steadying herself against the weight of her role. She was no warrior, no diplomat, yet here she was, asked to bridge worlds that seemed destined to collide. "Soldiers value their papers, ledgers, letters, laws," she said. "If they bring talking marks, it's likely a demand for the raiders' surrender or proof of the traitors' crimes. The ledgers we took from Dawson's Post show his theft, not just from the Lakota, but from their own government. Those could turn their justice against him, not you. Gray Owl nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing. And if they demand our warriors, then we show them the truth, Alina said. The ledgers, the wounds on your men, the story of what Dawson did. But we must be careful. Soldiers respect strength, but they fear defiance. We offer truth, not surrender. A murmur of approval rippled through the council. Swift Bear translated her words, and after a heated debate, voices rising like the wind over the prairie, the council reached a decision. Swift Bear and two young warriors, Fast Elk and Young Coyote, would accompany Alina to Fort Laramie with the ledgers. They would meet the soldiers under the white flag, seeking justice for the Lakota while protecting the camp from reprisal. As the council dispersed, Swift Bear turned to Alina. You walk a dangerous path, speaking for us in their fort. His dark eyes held concern but also trust. I'll do what I can, she promised. For your people, for the truth. He nodded, then added softly, Be safe, Alina Harper. The camp needs you. The words carried a weight beyond their surface, stirring something deep within her, but there was no time to dwell. The journey to Fort Laramie loomed, and with it, a confrontation that could shape the future. The trek took 4 days, Alina riding beside Lieutenant Daniel Carter, a young officer whose West Point polish belied his unease in the Wyoming wilds. Fast Elk and Young Coyote followed, their faces stoic despite the soldiers' wary glances. The ledgers, wrapped in oilskin, rested securely in Alina's saddlebag, their pages a silent indictment of Agent Dawson's corruption. Carter proved unexpectedly open, sharing tales of his training, his service in the Civil War's final days, and his doubts about his role on the frontier. I was taught Indians were savages, he admitted on the 3rd day, his voice low. My father fought at Washita, said they'd scalp you as soon as look at you. But these men, he glanced at Fast Elk and Young Coyote. They're just trying to live, same as us. That's the truth of the frontier, Alina said. People on both sides want to protect their own. It's fear and greed that make enemies. Carter nodded, his youthful face troubled. I'm starting to see that, ma'am. But it's a hard truth to carry when orders come from men who don't. Fort Laramie emerged on the 4th afternoon, its stars and stripes snapping in the wind long before its log walls came into view. Fast Elk and Young Coyote tensed, the fort a symbol of everything that threatened their way of life. Alina met their eyes, offering a nod of reassurance. They had trusted her this far, she would not fail them. Carter led them to the commander's office, bypassing the curious stares of soldiers and traders. A white woman in Lakota dress, flanked by 2 stoic warriors, was a sight to stir whispers. Colonel William Hargrove was a grizzled veteran, his gray beard and immaculate uniform speaking of decades in the Army. His eyes narrowed as Carter outlined the situation, the raid, the ledgers, the Lakota's accusations against Dawson. This is irregular, Lieutenant, Hargrove said, his voice clipped. Bringing Indians into my fort without approval, taking their word over a government agent's. And you, ma'am, who are you exactly? Alina met his gaze unflinchingly. Alina Harper. 4 months ago, I lived with my nephew near Cheyenne. When my brother died, my nephew decided I was too old to feed through winter. He cast me out in a blizzard, expecting me to die. The Lakota found me, half frozen, and took me in. They healed me, gave me purpose as a teacher and healer. I'm here by choice, Colonel, to speak for the truth. Hargrove's expression was unreadable. You expect me to believe these? People rescued you out of kindness. A white woman, I expect you to believe facts, Alina replied. And I've never called them savages. That word poisons honest talk. A flicker of respect crossed Hargrove's face. Let's see these ledgers. Eleanor placed the books on his desk. The top one's Dawson's official record for inspectors. The bottom shows his real dealings, how he cheated the government and the tribes. For an hour, Hargrove pored over the pages, his skepticism giving way to grim acknowledgement. The numbers didn't lie. Dawson had skimmed supplies, shorted rations, and pocketed thousands. This is damning, he admitted. But it doesn't justify an armed raid. With respect, Colonel, Eleanor countered, what choice did they have? Fast Elk and Young Coyote won a trade fairly. Dawson beat one nearly to death, locked the other in a cellar without water for 3 days. They'd complained before, through your channels, and got nothing. Hargrove surprised her by nodding. Let the young men speak. Fast Elk's English was halting but clear, recounting the assault for questioning Dawson's unfair trade. Young Coyote spoke of the cellar, his voice steady despite the ordeal. Their dignity seemed to shift something in Hargrove, his face hardening, not against them but at the injustice. I'll question Dawson, he said. He's in the infirmary, injured in the raid. Lieutenant, escort Miss Harper and these men to the visitors' quarters. They're guests, not prisoners. The quarters were a small cabin, clean and spare, with rooms for Eleanor and the warriors. A corporal brought meals, and Carter relayed Hargrove's order to stay put for their safety. Dawson had allies at the fort, men who profited from his schemes or shared his contempt for the Lakota. 3 days crawled by, Eleanor documenting her testimony, Fast Elk and Young Coyote waiting with the patient stillness of their people. On the 4th day, Carter returned, his face tense. Hargrove wants you now. Dawson's filed charges, not just against the raiders, but you, Miss Harper. Says you're a traitor, feeding Lakota secrets to use against the army. Eleanor's anger flared. That's nonsense. I've been with them 4 months. I know, Carter said. But Dawson's got influence, and some want to believe the worst. In Hargrove's office, 2 new faces awaited. Superintendent Amos Reed from the Bureau of Indian Affairs and Mr. Clarence Tate, a clerk from the territorial governor's office. Their expressions dripped with suspicion. We've reviewed your claims, Miss Harper, Reed began, his tone dismissive. There are minor discrepancies in Dawson's books, but nothing to suggest systematic fraud. Minor, Eleanor said, incredulous. The ledgers show thousands diverted, rations cut, payments stolen. That's not minor. Easy to fabricate, Reed shot back, especially with Indians who resent authority. Eleanor held her temper. The ledgers are in Dawson's handwriting. Verify it. They were taken straight from his office. When could this fabrication have happened? Tate cleared his throat. It's not just the ledgers, Miss Harper. It's your situation. A white woman living with hostiles, wearing their clothes, joining their rituals. It questions your reliability. The accusation stung, but Eleanor saw their game. Her testimony was worthless because she dared to live among the Lakota. Hargrove, silent until now, spoke. I've questioned Dawson. He admits irregularities, claims they were minor, done for the government's benefit. Eleanor's disbelief boiled over. He stole from both the government and the tribes. Your attachment to these Indians clouds your judgment, Reed snapped. Dawson served 6 years with no complaints. No complaints, Fast Elk interjected, his voice sharp. Many complaints. No one hears. The room fell silent, Reed and Tate exchanging dismissive glances. Eleanor felt defeat creeping in. This was the justice she'd promised Swift Bear, a farce where Dawson's word trumped truth. Then Hargrove spoke again. Gentlemen, I'm not satisfied we've reached the truth. He lifted a paper. I wired the Cheyenne Bank. Dawson's deposited over $4,000 in 2 years. His salary's $800. Reed flushed. You had no right. I had every right, Hargrove cut in. A crime was alleged in my jurisdiction. I investigated. Hope flickered in Alina's chest. Hargrove wasn't just another officer turning a blind eye. Tate recovered, deflecting. Even if Dawson's finances are questionable, it doesn't justify a raid. The Indians must be punished. They will be, Hargrove said. But so will Dawson. 2 hours of negotiation followed, Hargrove presenting evidence, ledgers, bank records, scout reports, trader testimonies. Slowly, Reed and Tate yielded. By afternoon, a compromise emerged. Dawson would be removed and charged with embezzlement. The Lakota raiders would face no charges, but must return non-ledger goods. It wasn't full justice, but more than Alina had dared hope, given Reed and Tate's hostility. Hargrove addressed Alina. You're free to leave tomorrow. I've arranged an escort back to the Lakota camp. Thank you, Colonel, she said. You've been fairer than I expected. His expression was weary, tinged with regret. I'm a soldier, Miss Harper. I follow orders, but I try to answer to something higher. Do you plan to stay with the Lakota permanently? The question caught her off guard, Swift Bear's proposal flashing in her mind. I do, she said. They're my family now, more than my blood ever was. Hargrove nodded. Then pray the peace holds. The tide of settlement won't stop, not by you, me, or all the army on the frontier. His words chilled her, a warning of storms to come. Part 9. A Union forged in starlight. The return to the Lakota camp took 5 days, Lieutenant Carter leading a disciplined escort. On the third night, by a campfire along a nameless creek, Carter approached Alina. Miss Harper, may I speak plainly? She nodded, sensing his unease. I've been thinking about Hargrove's words, the tide of settlement. He's right. More settlers, more forts, less land for the Lakota. Why stay with them? Your healing skills could find you a place in any town. Alina studied his earnest face. Lieutenant, when my nephew cast me out, it was because in white society, an aging woman without a husband is worthless. My skills were valued, but not enough to keep me. Among the Lakota, I found respect, purpose, home. She touched the shell pendant marking her adoption. And there's more. I've found someone, a man of honor. Carter's eyes widened. You've an attachment to the most honorable man I know, she said softly. Yes, he fell silent, grappling with the idea. You know how both sides view such a union. At my age, Alina said, smiling sadly, I've learned which opinions matter. I've spent 50 years meeting others' expectations. The rest of my days will be on my terms. I wish you happiness then, Carter said, respect in his voice. And I wish you wisdom with the Lakota, Alina replied. They're not the enemy you were taught. 2 days later, the camp's teepee circle came into view, smoke rising into a clear spring sky. Alina's heart lifted home. Riders met them, Swift Bear at their head, his face controlled but his eyes betraying relief at her safety. Formalities were exchanged with care, Carter presenting Hargrove's document confirming Dawson's removal and the raiders' amnesty, provided stolen goods were returned. Only then did Swift Bear address Alina directly. You are well. I am, she assured him. We did what we set out to do. Not perfectly, but enough. He nodded, a faint acknowledgement of her success. Come. Counsel waits for the full story. Alina turned to Carter, offering her hand. Thank you for your fairness, Lieutenant. It won't be forgotten. He held her hand briefly. Godspeed, Miss Harper. Perhaps we'll meet again in better times. Perhaps, she agreed, though both knew their paths were diverging. As the soldiers rode away, Swift Bear drew closer, his expression softening now that white eyes were gone. "Was worried," he admitted. "Fort Laramie is dangerous for Lakota friends." "It was hard," Alina said, "but Hargrove was honorable and Carter became an ally." He studied her fatigue-lined face. "Rest first." "Council can wait." "No," she said. "Better to tell it once, then move forward." Riding to camp, Swift Bear spoke softly. "Did you think on my question? The one before you left?" His marriage proposal, pushed aside by the fort's chaos, surged back. "I did," she said carefully. "We'll speak privately after council." He nodded, patient as ever. Tonight, when the council fire dims. The council meeting was grueling. Alina, Fast Elk, and young Coyote recounted every detail. Hargrove's initial doubt, his bank inquiries, the compromise. Reactions varied. Some saw victory in Dawson's fall, others saw proof white justice would always falter. Miller punished but lightly, an elder noted. An Indian would hang for less. "It's a start," Alina said. No blood was spilled, and the new agent will know he's watched. The council valued the bloodless outcome, weary of endless violence. As night fell, Grandmother Willow embraced Alina. "Glad you're safe, daughter. Sleep in my teepee tonight." Much to share. Alina glanced at Swift Bear waiting nearby. Grandmother Willow followed her gaze, smiling. "Ah, my son has questions. Tomorrow's soon enough for an old woman's tales." Alina and Swift Bear walked to the rise where they'd spoken before. The night cool, stars piercing the indigo sky. "You did brave things at the fort," he said. "We all did," she corrected. "Fast Elk and young Coyote walked into danger, trusting me." He nodded. "But you spoke truth to power, walked between worlds. A rare gift, valuable to Lakota." "I'll help however I can," she promised. "For as long as I'm here." His gaze sharpened. "And how long, Alina Harper?" "Until spring, or all your days." The question wasn't just about marriage, but loyalty, commitment to his people over the world that had rejected her. Alina had wrestled with this on the journey back, what she wanted, where she belonged. The answers were clear now. "Yes," she said, her voice soft but resolute. "My answer is yes, Swift Bear. I will be your wife." His face flickered with surprise, then relief, and finally a joy that seemed to light the night. He took her hands, his touch gentle yet firm. "You are certain?" Life is not easy for a white woman among Lakota, nor for a Lakota with a white wife. "I've never been surer," she said. "At Fort Laramie, I realized I've spent my life doing what others expected, dutiful daughter, useful aunt. This choice, you, the Lakota, this life, is mine alone. It feels right like nothing ever has." He smiled faintly. "My people say when the heart speaks clear, the mind must listen." "My heart's shouting," Alina said, laughing softly. "And I'm listening." They stood in the starlight, the camp's fires twinkling below like a constellation of lives woven together. Gratitude washed over Alina, for the blizzard that nearly killed her, for Swift Bear's rescue, for this moment of clarity. "What now?" she asked. "Ceremonies. Customs. Families give gifts, honor bonds," he said, a glint of humor in his eyes. "My mother already plans. She's watched us, seen what grows." Alina chuckled. "She's a force. I'd be proud to call her mother." "She calls you daughter," Swift Bear said, touching her shell pendant. "We tell the council," said a day, "begin together." As they walked back, Alina asked, "Where will we live?" "Your teepee, a new lodge," he said. "Women prepare hides, men cut poles. Unless you want a white man's wooden house." The offer touched her. He'd build outside his tradition for her. "A teepee's perfect," she said. "Warm, flexible, wise." Fixed houses seem foolish now. Part 10. A Marriage of Worlds. News of their betrothal spread like wildfire. By morning, the camp buzzed. Women who knew Alina as healer and teacher offered warm congratulations. Children cheered that teacher Alina would stay forever. Some, especially young warriors scarred by white soldiers, turned cold shoulders, their distrust a reminder of the divide. Grandmother Willow was in full preparation, sorting hides painted with protective symbols. "For your lodge," she said. "Strong medicine for a new start." "Thank you, Mother," Alina said, the title feeling natural. "Good you call me this," Grandmother Willow said, pleased. But whispers in camp, some kind, some not. "You ready?" "I expected it," Alina said. A marriage between worlds stirs talk. Over 2 weeks, preparations intensified. Lakota tradition called for the groom's family to gift the bride's kin, but with Alina's blood family absent, Swift Bear distributed horses, blankets, and trade goods to the camp, honoring her adoption. Alina contributed her medical supplies to Grandmother Willow, her books to the children, and crafted salves for the ceremony day. Little Sparrow, a 10-year-old student, asked, "Teacher Alina, when you marry Swift Bear, will you have babies?" The question hushed the schoolhouse. "No," Alina said honestly. "I'm too old for that. My season for babies has passed." "Then why marry?" Little Sparrow asked. "People marry to share life," Alina explained. "To face joys and hardships together, to build a family, even without children." Little Sparrow nodded. "Like my grandmother, who teaches us after grandfather's gone. She makes us stronger." "Exactly," Alina said, pleased. That evening, she shared the exchange with Swift Bear. "Some wonder why I choose a woman beyond childbearing," he said. "I tell them I had a wife and unborn son, lost to soldiers. Now I choose a companion for life's winter, wisdom, courage, and open heart." "And that's enough?" Alina asked. "For us it is," he said, taking her hand. 3 days before the ceremony, Lieutenant Carter arrived alone, under a truce flag. "Miss Harper," he said, "I was patrolling nearby, wanted to check on you." They spoke at the camp's edge, Swift Bear nearby. "The truth, Lieutenant," Alina said. "What brings you?" he sighed. "Rumors of a white woman marrying a Lakota warrior. The Indian agencies alarmed, talking of rescuing you, claiming you're compromised or captive. It's a pretext to enter the camp, push the Lakota to Red Cloud Agency." Alina's blood ran cold. "When?" "Within the month," Carter said. "Washington's new policy, all tribes on reservations by year's end or their enemies." He glanced at Swift Bear. "I thought you should know to prepare." "Thank you," Alina said. "This warning may save lives." Carter hesitated. "One more thing. Your nephew James Whitaker claims you're dead, petitioning for your brother's land." Anger flared, but Alina let it go. "Let him have it. That life's gone." "The marriage rumor's true?" Carter asked. "Yes," she said, chin high. "In 3 days," he paused. "I don't understand, but I respect your choice." "He's a lucky man." "We're both lucky," she corrected. Carter declined a meal, citing risks if his warning were discovered, and rode off. An emergency council convened, Alina relaying Carter's news. The Lakota received it with grim acceptance, familiar with broken promises and shrinking lands. "What of the ceremony?" an elder asked. "Delay for safety." Swift Bear stood. "We live without fear. The ceremony goes on. Then we choose our path, as family, as tribe, as people. Not Washington, not agents." The council agreed, determined to face the future on their terms. Part 11. A Ceremony of Unity. The ceremony dawned bright, an early spring sun melting the last snow. Alina rose before dawn, joining Grandmother Willow and other women for sacred preparations. They bathed her in urban-fused water, braiding her hair with red cloth strips in the style of a Lakota wife. Instead of a white gown, she wore a buckskin dress, its quillwork and beads tracing her journey from outcast to cherished kin. "Beautiful," Grandmother Willow said. "Not just dress, spirit shines." At 48, Eleanor felt beautiful, her age a badge of wisdom among the Lakota, not a mark of obsolescence. The ceremony blended traditions, honoring both worlds. Under a willow arch, Eleanor and Swift Bear exchanged vows, hers in halting Lakota, his in steady English. Prayers rose to Wakantanka and Eleanor's childhood god, a holy man blessing them with sage smoke. Grandmother Willow draped a blanket over their shoulders, binding them as one. Gifts flowed, Swift Bear's horses and trade goods, Eleanor's medicines and books, shared with the camp in a celebration of community. As feasting began, children danced to drums, women served venison and cornbread, men sang ancient songs. Eleanor saw what James could not, a society valuing every soul, where age was an achievement, not a burden. Swift Bear, now her husband, approached, his face alight with joy. "Wife," he said, savoring the word. "Husband," she replied, the title fitting like a well-worn glove. He led her to their new teepee, painted with healing and protection symbols. Lifting her in a playful nod to white custom, he carried her inside, her laughter echoing. The lodge blended their worlds, buffalo robes beside Eleanor's sewing kit, a space for her teaching books, a fire pit unlit. "First fire we light together," Swift Bear said. Eleanor added sage for wisdom, he sweetgrass for blessing. As flames grew, their shadows merged on the walls, two lives now one. "Are you happy, Eleanor Harper?" he asked. "More than happy," she said. "I'm home, and tomorrow when challenges come, we face them together," she said, her hand in his. The celebration lasted until dawn, Eleanor and Swift Bear joining the final blessing, as the holy man prayed for their future. Looking to the horizon, Eleanor knew forces were gathering, agents, soldiers, settlers. Yet hand in hand with her husband, she felt no fear. She was no longer the woman cast out to die. Teacher Eleanor, healer Eleanor, Lakota daughter stood tall, her place unquestioned. Part 12, A Legacy Between Worlds. In the years that followed, Eleanor and Swift Bear's union became a legend in the Wyoming territory. Their story spread east, sparking fascination, disbelief, and outrage. To some, Eleanor was a cautionary tale, a woman lost to savagery. To others, especially aging women, she was a beacon of defiance, choosing her path when society offered none. The Lakota called her Winyan Luda, Red Star, a healer bridging worlds, her wisdom guiding their navigation of white expansion. As Carter warned, reservation pressures grew. Swift Bear's band, with Eleanor's counsel, balanced negotiation and retreat, preserving traditions while adapting. Eleanor never saw James again, learning he lost the homestead to debt and whiskey, a bitter irony for the man who deemed her worthless. For 12 years, their teepee was a haven of healing and learning, where Lakota children mastered white ways without losing their roots, and rare white visitors found care that challenged their biases. In the brutal winter of 1879, at 60, Eleanor passed to the spirit world, mourned as a beloved elder. Swift Bear, his hair silver, led her ceremonies with dignity, honoring her journey from outcast to grandmother. Her story might have faded, but her students, now adults, recorded it in the white man's written words, a skill she taught them. The tale of Winyan Luda survived reservations, the ghost dances fall, and wounded knee, passed through generations as proof that connection can defy division. In Wyoming's rolling hills, Some say Alina and Swift Bear's spirits still walk, hand in hand between worlds forever together. Part 13. The Gathering Storm. Wyoming Territory, summer 1867. The sun hung high over the Platte River, its light glinting off the teepee circle of the Hung-Papa Lakota camp, where Alina Harper and Swift Bear had begun their life as husband and wife. The air buzzed with the rhythm of daily tasks, women scraping buffalo hides, children chasing each other through packed dirt paths, men sharpening arrows for the next hunt. But beneath the camp's vibrant pulse, a shadow loomed, carried on the wind from Fort Laramie. Lieutenant Carter's warning lingered like a storm cloud. The Indian Agency was coming, intent on forcing the Lakota onto the Red Cloud Agency reservation. For Alina, now Winyan-Luta, Red Star to her adopted people, the promise of their new lodge felt both a sanctuary and a fragile defiance against the tide of white settlement. Alina knelt beside Grandmother Willow, sorting yarrow and sage for the camp's medicinal stores. The old healer's hands moved with practiced grace, her gray braids swaying as she hummed a soft Lakota prayer. "Your thoughts are heavy, daughter," Grandmother Willow said, her eyes never leaving her work. "The agency men," Alina nodded, her fingers pausing over a bundle of herbs. "Carter said they could arrive within the month. They'll claim I'm a captive, use it to justify their presence. What happens when they come?" Grandmother Willow's lips tightened. "They come with sweet words, then iron chains. Always the same. We move, we fight, or we bend. Each path has its cost." She met Alina's gaze, her eyes sharp with the wisdom of countless winters. "But you, Red Star, you walk between their world and ours. Your voice may turn their hearts, or at least their steps." Alina wasn't so sure. At Fort Laramie, Colonel Hargrove had listened, but men like Superintendent Reed and Tate saw only what fit their narrative: Indians as savages, a white woman among them as a traitor. Still, she had promised Swift Bear to help, to use her knowledge of white ways to protect the camp. "I'll try," she said, "but I fear words won't stop what's coming." That evening, as the camp gathered for a communal meal, venison stew flavored with wild onions, cornbread baked in Alina's iron skillet from her Philadelphia days, Swift Bear addressed the council informally, his voice carrying over the crackling fire. "The white man's agents will come," he said, his scarred face lit by flames. "They want our land, our freedom, our children's future. We must decide, stay and speak, move to the Powder River's hidden valleys, or prepare for war." The warriors murmured, some gripping their knives, others looking to their families. Fast Elk, one of the young men Alina had defended at Fort Laramie, spoke up. "They'll never hear us. Their ears are closed, their hearts hard." "Why talk when blood speaks louder?" Alina's heart sank. She understood his anger. His scars from Agent Dawson's beating were still fresh, but bloodshed would only bring soldiers, and with them, devastation. Swift Bear raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. "Blood is a heavy price. Our children deserve a future, not graves. Red Star knows their laws, their papers. She will speak for us as she did before." All eyes turned to Alina, some warm with trust, others cold with doubt. She rose, her buckskin dress catching the firelight. "I'm no chief, no warrior," she said. "But I've seen white justice bend when truth is loud enough. Let me try words first. If they fail, you'll choose what comes next." The council agreed, though tension lingered. As the fire died to embers, Swift Bear drew Alina aside, leading her to their teepee. Inside, the air was warm, scented with sage from their first fire. "You carry a heavy burden," he said, his dark eyes searching hers. "Some in camp doubt you, fear your white blood." "I know," Alina said, touching the shell pendant at her throat. but I'm Lakota by choice, by heart. I'll prove it not just to them, but to myself. He took her hands, his calloused fingers steady. You already have to me. The simple faith in his voice stirred her, a reminder of why she'd chosen this life. They sat by the fire, planning for the agency's arrival, Alina drafting a letter in her careful script, Swift Bear suggesting terms to protect their autonomy. Outside, the camp slept, but the horizon held the promise of conflict, as inevitable as the turning seasons. Part 14, The Path of Peace. 3 weeks later, the Indian agency arrived, 4 men in stiff suits, escorted by a dozen soldiers under a white flag. Their leader, Agent Nathaniel Brooks, was a wiry man with a politician's smile, his words dripping with false warmth. The camp gathered at the council teepee, Swift Bear and Gray Owl at the center, Alina beside them, her letter and the Fort Laramie ledgers ready. Brooks spoke first, his voice loud for the soldiers' benefit. We've heard troubling reports. A white woman, Miss Alina Harper, held against her will. We're here to ensure her safety and discuss your band's relocation to Red Cloud Agency, where you'll be protected. Alina stood, her voice clear despite the knot in her chest. I'm Alina Harper, and I'm here by choice. The Lakota saved my life when my own kin cast me out. I'm their teacher, their healer, their sister by adoption. Your concern is misplaced. Brooks's smile faltered, but he pressed on. Be that as it may, the government requires all tribes to settle on designated lands. It's for your benefit, schools, supplies, safety. Gray Owl responded, Swift Bear translating. Our land is here, given by Wakantanka. Your schools teach our children to forget who they are. Your supplies come with chains. Brooks's eyes narrowed. Refusal means you're hostiles. The army will act. Alina stepped forward, holding up her letter. This is our proposal. The Hunkpapa Lakota will remain on our traditional lands, trading peacefully as we have. In return, I'll teach your officials our ways, help avoid conflicts. The ledgers from Lodgepole Creek prove we seek justice, not war. The soldiers shifted, hands on rifles, but Brooks took the letter, scanning it with a frown. You're bold, Miss Harper, but Washington's policy is clear. Reservations or consequences. Swift Bear's voice was low, dangerous. We are no one's prisoners. Try to force us, and the plains will sing with war. The air crackled, every warrior ready to draw blood. Alina's heart raced. She'd seen this brinkmanship at Fort Laramie, knew how quickly words could turn to bullets. Agent Brooks, she said, her tone firm but calm, you know what happened at Lodgepole Creek. Colonel Hargrove found truth in our words. Force us and you'll have more than a raid. You'll have a war that costs lives on both sides. Read our terms. Take them to your superiors. Let peace have a chance. Brooks hesitated, glancing at the soldiers, then back at the council's unyielding faces. I'll present your letter, he said finally. But don't expect miracles. Washington wants results. The agency left the next day, their escort kicking up dust as they vanished over the ridge. The camp exhaled, but the reprieve was temporary. Swift Bear called another council, and Alina spoke of what she'd learned in Philadelphia's parlors and Cheyenne's trading posts. They'll delay, send more agents, maybe soldiers. We need allies, other bands, even white traders who have dealt fairly with you. And we need to document everything, our rights, our history in their language. Vast Elk scoffed. Their paper means nothing. They break every treaty. True, Alina said, but paper is their weapon. If we wield it too, we can slow them, buy time to strengthen our position. The council tasked Alina with teaching more children to write, ensuring their stories would endure. She spent days crafting petitions, Swift Bear at her side, his steady presence a bulwark against doubt. That night in their teepee, Alina confessed her fear. "What if I've promised more than I can deliver?" Words against an army. Swift Bear pulled her close, his warmth grounding her. "You've given us a path we didn't see. If it fails, we'll find another together." His faith steadied her, and as summer turned to fall, the camp prepared, scouts patrolled, warriors trained, and Alina's students scratched their first letters onto bark, their voices rising in both Lakota and English. Part 15. The Next Generation. By spring 1868, no soldiers had come, but the agency's shadow grew. Scouts reported new forts along the Bozeman Trail, settlers carving ranches into Lakota hunting grounds. The camp moved twice, following the buffalo, each relocation a reminder of their shrinking world. Alina and Swift Bear's lodge moved with them, its painted hides a beacon of hope. Their life settled into a rhythm, Alina teaching by day, healing with Grandmother Willow by night, Swift Bear leading hunts and councils, always returning to her with stories of the land. The children became Alina's pride. Little Sparrow, now 11, wrote her first sentence in English. "The Lakota are strong." Fast Elk's younger sister, Blue Sky, composed a poem about the stars, reciting it at a camp feast to cheers. Alina wove American tales into her lessons, Davy Crockett's frontier grit, Betsy Ross's flag, alongside Lakota legends of White Buffalo Calf Woman, showing the children that courage and wisdom transcended borders. "You're the bridge," she told them. "You'll speak to both worlds, keep our stories alive." One evening, as the camp celebrated the 4th of July, not for white independence, but for their own defiance, Grandmother Willow took Alina aside. "You've changed us, Red Star. The young ones carry your fire, but also your patience. They'll need both," her eyes twinkled. "And you, daughter, any regrets for this life?" Alina looked at Swift Bear, laughing with warriors by the fire, his scars softened in the glow. "None," she said. "This is where I was always meant to be." In 1870, the agency sent a new emissary, Captain Elias Thornton, a former abolitionist with a reputation for fairness. He arrived alone, unarmed, earning cautious respect. Alina and Swift Bear met him, presenting their petitions and a ledger of fair trades with local ranchers. Thornton listened, his face thoughtful. "I can't stop Washington," he said, "but I'll argue for your autonomy. Your words, Miss Harper, carry weight, more than you know." Thornton's advocacy bought time, but by 1876, the Great Sioux War erupted, sparked by gold in the Black Hills. Swift Bear's band avoided direct fighting, slipping into remote valleys, but the war's ripples reached them. Fewer buffalo, more soldiers, grieving kin from other bands. Alina wrote letters to Eastern newspapers, describing the Lakota's plight, her words printed in Boston and Philadelphia, stirring debate among readers who'd never seen the plains. In 1878, Grandmother Willow passed to the spirit world, her final words to Alina a blessing. "Keep teaching, Red Star. Our stories are your stars now." Alina mourned deeply, but took up her mentor's mantle, training young healers like Blue Sky. Swift Bear, graying but unbowed, led the camp through lean years, his love for Alina a quiet strength. "We're old now," he teased one night, his hand tracing her silver hair. "Too old for their world, perfect for ours." When Alina died in 1879, at 60, the camp honored her as Winyan Luda, their grandmother. Swift Bear buried her beneath a cottonwood, her shell pendant at her heart. The children she'd taught, now grown, carried her story forward, writing it in English and Lakota, a testament that survived the reservation's despair. In Wyoming's hills, their spirits are said to linger, Alina and Swift Bear walking hand in hand, their love a light against the darkness, Their legacy a bridge between worlds that endures. Part 16. A Horizon Unwrit. Wyoming Territory, Spring 1879. The Platte River shimmered under a tentative sun, its banks dotted with the first wildflowers breaking through the thawing earth. In the Hung Papa Lakota camp, the teepee circle stood resilient, though smaller now, its numbers worn by years of hardship. Beside her, Swift Bear, his face lined with the weight of 50 winters, surveyed the horizon. The Great Sioux War had scarred the land, and whispers of new treaties, promises as fragile as spring ice, reached even this remote valley. Yet in this moment the camp thrummed with life, a testament to their defiance. Aliner's hand rested in Swift Bear's, their fingers entwined like the roots of the cottonwoods along the river. Behind them, the camp prepared for a ceremony, not of mourning but of hope, a vision quest for little Sparrow, now 14, whose sharp mind and bold spirit marked her as a future leader. Aliner had taught her to write, to speak English with confidence, but also to sing Lakota songs that carried the wisdom of her ancestors. "She'll see far," Aliner said, her voice soft with pride. "Her words will carry our stories beyond these hills." Swift Bear nodded, his eyes tracing the distant Bighorn Mountains, where clouds gathered like an omen. "She must," he said. "The white man's forts grow closer. Their paper laws tighten like a noose. Our children will need her voice and yours." Aliner felt the weight of his words. Her letters to Eastern newspapers had stirred hearts in Boston and Philadelphia, planting seeds of doubt about the government's relentless push. But seeds took time to grow, and time was a luxury the Lakota could ill afford. A drumbeat rose from the camp, calling the people to the ceremony. Aliner and Swift Bear joined the circle, where little Sparrow stood, her face painted with sacred ochre, her eyes bright with determination. Blue Sky, now a skilled healer, led the prayers, her voice steady as she invoked Wakantanka. Aliner added her own silent prayer, blending the Protestant hymns of her childhood with the Lakota's reverence for the earth. As the holy man blessed little Sparrow, sending her into the hills to seek her vision, Aliner felt a pang of both hope and uncertainty. What would the girl see? A path to peace, or the shadow of soldiers' boots? That night in their teepee, Aliner and Swift Bear sat by the fire, its glow casting their shadows as one. A letter from Captain Thornton lay open, his careful script warning of a new agency delegation, this one backed by cavalry. "They'll offer land," Aliner said, "but it's a trap, smaller reservations, fewer rights." Swift Bear's jaw tightened. "We've moved before. We can again. But each move cuts deeper." The buffalo fade, the old ways strain. He met her gaze, his eyes fierce with love. "Yet you give me strength, Red Star. You make me believe we can endure." Aliner squeezed his hand, her heart full yet heavy. "We'll endure because we must. For little Sparrow, Blue Sky, all of them. They're writing their own story now, in both our tongues." She touched the shell pendant at her throat, a symbol of her adoption, her choice. "Whatever comes, soldiers, treaties, or storms, we'll face it together as we always have." Outside, the camp slept under a sky ablaze with stars, each a story, each a possibility. Little Sparrow was out there, seeking her vision, while scouts watched the trails for signs of the agency's approach. Aliner and Swift Bear's lodge stood as a beacon, its painted hides a promise of healing and resistance. The future was unwritten, a horizon vast with peril and potential. Would the camp hold its ground, slip into hidden valleys, or find a new way to bridge the widening chasm between worlds? Only time would tell, but as Alina leaned into Swift Bear's warmth, she knew one truth. Their love, their shared purpose would light the way, whatever path they chose. And so, under the Wyoming stars, the story paused, not ended, but waiting, like a river poised to carve its next course through the endless prairie.